Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. As you all know, we have been hosting a series of webinars on the Urban Fellows Program. This is to give you all an opportunity to meet some of our faculty and also to learn more about the course and the curriculum. Our speaker for today is Neha Sami. She is one of the Associate Deans at IHS and a faculty for the Urban Fellows Program. Today, she'll take you through the admission process and scholarships. If you have any questions or queries, please drop them in the Q&A box. Neha will answer them towards the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you. Thanks, Soumya. Hi, everyone. My name is Neha Sami, like Soumya said. I'm one of the faculty here at IHS. My training has been varied and diverse, like most of us here. I'm trained as an economist, as an environmental scientist, and an urban planner. And I work and teach within the UFP on questions of urban governance, on environmental planning and governance. My research focuses particularly on questions of large infrastructure projects and governance questions around those. What I'm going to do today is actually just talk you through a little bit on the admissions process itself, to explain to you what that entails, to talk through a little bit on how, just walk you through the form, talk you through, how we kind of operate and the time that it will take. And then I'd be happy to take any questions that you have towards the end. I can also point you to a set of resources that we have on our website if you feel like you need more help and support. So just really quickly, the UFP admissions process is a two-step process. The first is the written application form, which I'll walk you through in a minute. Once we have the application form and it's graded, usually, we close admissions, like we said, around the 11th of April this year. Once we have all the written applications in, we grade them, and there is a sort of short list that emerges from the first round of applicants. And the shortlist is essentially for in-person or online interviews. So we do those, towards the middle to the end of May. And then by sort of early to middle June, the first list of, our class goes out. So you will hear first by sort of the middle of May if you've made it through into the interview shortlist, and then you'll hear in the middle of June if you've made it into the class. We also have a wait list, so people who, for a range of reasons, we weren't able to admit, will be put on a wait list. You'll get a notification that you've been waitlisted. You have a choice whether you want to stay on the wait list or request to not be on it. If you do choose to stay on the wait list, as people decline offers of admission from the first list, if that happens, we'll make offers to people who are on the wait list. So that's in a nutshell the admissions process. I'll just share my screen and quickly walk you through the admissions form itself. One thing I do want to say is that we encourage everyone to submit the form online. Let me know if you can't see it, but we encourage everyone to use the online portal, but we do have the option of you either downloading the form, filling it, scanning it, and emailing it to us in case you're not able to fill it online. And also sort of at the very, the absolute kind of, if there's no way in which you can get access to internet, we also have the ability for you to download the form, fill it in by hand, and post it to us. We encourage you to not do that only because postal times and courier times are variable, and if it doesn't make it to us by the deadline, then we won't be able to accept the admission form. So this is what the form looks like. I would encourage all of you to the form is downloadable from the website, so I would encourage all of you, before you apply and before you start filling in the form online, to just download it and familiarize yourself with it before you start filling in the form. The form has 4 parts. And that's partly why I would encourage you to go through it in as much detail as possible. When you register and when you get into the page where you start applying, and on the form you will have to create an identifier through a unique email ID. You can't create multiple accounts. You will be identified by a single email ID. So whatever it is, choose that well. And then the first step is to fill in all your personal details. This is that part of the form. When you fill it in and when you start the application process, this gets auto-populated from the data that you have entered. So, be careful about how you enter it. Don't worry if you make a mistake, you won't be able to change it on the form. But if you have made a mistake, if you haven't entered, if you've made a mistake in entering something, complete the form, submit it, and then send us an email telling us, you'd like to make correction, and we'll fix it on the back end. So we collect, personal data on sort of where you live, what you do. We also collect data on the languages that you speak, various identity markers, as well as your parents' education. And we collect this because we curate a very diverse class. We want a class with a range of life experiences, and all of these are non-mandatory. You don't have to answer. You don't have to answer all of them. There's always the option to say you do not want to disclose any of it. So it's your choice whether you answer it or not. But we do encourage you to fill it in as much detail as possible, because that enables us to curate a really diverse classroom. We have a set of questions about where you heard about us from. And then there's part 2 of the application form focuses on your educational qualifications, and the one that is required that we need you to fill in is your higher secondary education, which is 10+2. And fill that in again with as much detail as you can. I know that some folks might not have a percentage or a grade. Please provide a percentage equivalent, or as close or your best guess as possible. And if you want to, there's a box right at the end of the form where you can provide us with any additional information that you want to clarify. So once you fill that in, there is details also for your undergraduate and then postgraduate degrees, as well as any other degrees that you might have. So fill this in to the best of your ability. The category for your education qualification is the last degree that you have received. So, if you have an undergraduate, then it's your undergraduate degree. If you've done a master's, then it's your master's degree. And so just go through this in detail. There's a set of, examples of degrees that are disciplines that we've given here. We'd encourage you to just go through that and think through it and choose the one that best fits. It might not be an exact match with what you've done, but choose the one that comes closest to your degree and your discipline. The third part of the form captures information on any kind of work experience that you might have, whether it's it's a full-time job or an internship or volunteer work that you might have done, and we'd like you to kind of provide the name and address of the organization, the work that you were involved in, and the experience that you had there. And there's sort of space to do this for as many as you would like to offer. And finally, the fourth step is your personal statements and essays. And so again, these are split into 2 parts. The first is we'd like you to tell us why you want to apply, why you want to come to the UFP, and why it would encourage you to do what you want to do with your life and your career. The second has 2 parts. So part B is split into 2. The first, you can choose either one of these as an option. So you can either describe to us, a key experience or a moment from the work that you've done or your volunteer work, and what that has, and the impact that has had on motivating you to work on urban questions. Or you can choose to respond to one of these statements that we have uploaded. So you don't have to do both. You either tell us about, a particular experience or a moment that really motivated you to work in the urban, or you choose one of these statements and respond to them in the space given below. We encourage you to use, the written word. You can sketch, you can, use an image or a drawing or whatever you feel would best explain your case. There is really no right or wrong answer. Again, you can choose one of these statements and respond to that. And the second part of the personal statement, an essay, is a sample of work. We'd like you to upload one sample of academic or professional work. Please check that you have permission to share it. It's used only by the academic committee. It does not go out on any public platforms. But if it is, particularly if it's work that you've done, like reports and things like that, that you've done as part of other professional engagements, please do make sure that you have permission to share it outside of your work group. The sample of work can take any form. So in the past, we have had papers, thesis, like master's thesis, your architecture or design portfolios, plans that you might have created. Some people have sent us audio files. People have sent us a range of visual media, writing for, public writing like op-eds, etc. Preferably, we're looking for work that is your individual effort. It is work that you have done and allows us to assess, the kind of work you're able to do. If you're not able to share individual work, and especially in the case of sort of portfolios and things, if some of it is group work, please specify in the box given here what your contribution to that work was. Yeah. Please don't upload your CV or just one or two photographs without actually contextualizing them. So CVs don't count as valid samples of work. Just a random photograph or an audio file or a piece of text that doesn't actually have a lot of context around it will also not suffice for this part of the form. And finally, just review everything that you've got. Here is the box that I mentioned earlier that has space for any additional information that you would like to share, and then hit the submit button. You don't have to fill this form in one sitting. I'll stop sharing my screen in a minute, but please, if you are kind of downloading it, please send it to ufp.admissions. Please reach out to us on the phone or at the ufp.info email address if you need any help or support in going through the form. I'll just stop sharing my screen in a minute. And you don't have to fill it in one sitting. Like I said before, take your time, go through it in detail offline and then fill it in. You can also fill in part of it, take a break and go back. Just remember that when you leave the form and want to come back to it, remember to log out of your account before you do it, because that saves the form. So once you do that, everything that you fill up to that point gets saved. You don't have to re-enter any of it. You can come back to it anytime before the deadline and submit it. I would encourage all of you to submit early. We do tend to have a very kind of heavy load very close to the deadline. And so we end up having often sort of, too many people trying to submit and not everybody is able to get it in on time. And you just want to avoid any kind of technical issues that you might have if you leave it very much to the end. So that's on the admissions process. I'll take a bunch of questions on admissions now and then talk to you about scholarships and financial support that we offer at IHS. I see that there is one question on whether it's possible to apply for the program this year and defer it to the next year. Unfortunately not. We don't offer the ability to defer admissions. You will have to just create a fresh application for the next year, but I will say that we have had people apply multiple times for the UFP. The only thing is that if you feel like your eligibility criteria, I mean, you can't be over 30 when you apply if you choose to reapply the next year. Any questions? Anyone else have questions on the form, on the process? Anything I can help answer? Okay, if not, I'll just talk to you a little bit about the financial aid and financial support process that we have at IHS. So the Urban Fellows program is what is known as a needs blind program, which means that we do not deny admission to anyone solely on the basis of financial aid. So we have the ability and a very strong, robust scholarship program to provide financial support to anyone who might need it. the process of so it's blind, and the admission is blind to the need to your sort of financial need. You will be admitted irrespective of whether you have the ability to pay for it or not. So don't worry about the tuition fees at this point. Just go ahead and apply, and if you make it through the interview process, you will be sent a form along with your letter of admission, which sort of which will allow you to indicate whether you want to be considered for a scholarship or not. And you'll be asked to submit a case for support. So you'll be asking for a set of essays, documents, etc., to explain why you think you need aid. And once that's reviewed by the admissions committee, you'll, along with the sort of confirmation of admission, you'll also get a notification of whether you have been awarded financial aid or not. But please don't worry about the aid part of things. We have a very strong and robust scholarship program, and have in the past, offered as much support as is possible on our end to people who want to come into the program. So in terms of the writing sample, we're looking, the first thing is that I would really encourage you to, of course, submit something that is as close to the work that you have done, as close to the work that you feel you would like to do once you get into the UFP. So if it's something around urban questions, around urban issues, preferably the more recent, the better. If you happen to have published work, that always helps. If you have, again, the first choice, I think, is just to make sure that it's individual works. If you have individual work, that's the best thing to share. If you want to make a choice among those as well, send in something that's as recent as possible, and that reflects kind of, we're looking for your ability to make in writing samples, particularly in your ability to make an argument, to actually gather evidence, to actually be analytical. So send us sort of the thing that you feel represents your work best. It doesn't have to be a writing sample. Like I said, it could be it could take any form. We've had people send us films that they have made, music that they have created, podcasts that they have made, because we get a very wide range of disciplinary applicants. So we have people, everyone from like artists to lawyers and engineers who submit their samples of work, it just spans a very, very wide range. Did that answer your question? And then there's another question on what is expected in the any other thing about yourself section. We've just offered a space because we recognize that you might not, the form itself might not capture information that you want to share with us. So for example, if we've had in the past have people submit applications with a 10+2 and not really have an undergraduate degree, but substantial work experience that we actually consider in the process of admitting them to the UFP. If there in the past, we've also had people who had a unique grading system or had a degree that they couldn't quite explain in full detail in the form itself, and we encourage them to use the little box at the bottom to explain themselves better. So if you feel like there's anything that is relevant to the application form that isn't already captured in there, please use the box at the bottom to explain. Other question. Pranav has a question about the kind of proof an individual who has worked extensively on protests share. So I would encourage you to use the form, the space to actually, or to maybe write up and actually talk about the kinds of protests you've attended, the kind of issues that you've been protesting against, and whether that has been sort of a career choice and what exactly your role was in working on the protest. It doesn't really matter if there's no kind of, we don't expect a certificate of participation on that one. We'd like to hear about the kinds of protests you've attended, what the issues were, where they took place, for example, over what period of time were you involved in these processes, and so sort of as much information that you can give us about your motivation for participation, what you did as part of these protests, even if it is sort of, you can just write up on a Word doc and send that to us, that's fine. Other questions? Nothing on the form itself, on the process. Any questions you have about the curriculum? So the applications are assessed on the basis of a rubric that we have. Like I said, we assess largely on the basis of your statements and essays. So spend the most amount of time on that. We really want to know more than anything else why you want to be a part of the program, what it is that attracts you to the UFP, and where sort of the UFP fits in your imagination of your own professional trajectory and journey. And from the second part of the essay, what we're looking to actually assess is your ability to identify and analyze a problem. And so what we're looking for, which is why I said there is no right or wrong answer. There is also no particular method that we're looking for. You can sketch, you can draw, you can write about it. You can do a combination of all of those things. And then we assess it on the basis of your essays. And we also curate to make sure that no single discipline, and I think this will also answer the question about people from architecture, urban planning, or anthropology, if they give it a preference or not. No single discipline is more than a third of the class. So even though we might end up getting applications, actually we don't, we do get a lot of applications from urban studies folks, but we also get a lot of applications from social scientists. We get a lot of applications from engineers, lawyers, artists of various kinds. So it's a very, very diverse classroom. And often actually people who enter the program for architecture, urban planning, or even anthropology find themselves floundering, because the program itself is curated to get everyone to start at the same level. As far as the questions go, like you would have seen when I walked you through the form, there's nothing that particularly privileges people who come from an urban studies background or an anthropology background, for example. But we are looking for people who are interested in the urban. It is the Urban Fellows program. So we will want to hear about why you want to study, to work in and around cities. But if you can articulate that, then you're more than welcome, irrespective of the discipline that you come from. We've even had, like I said before, people who don't have an undergraduate degree who applied. And I made it into the program. So, other questions? Does your work experience need to be in an urban city setting? No, not at all. It can be a reflection of work anywhere. So we've had people who worked extensively on rural areas in India, who've worked on agrarian issues. But we do, in your essay, when you talk about why you want to come to the Urban Fellows program, we do expect an urban articulation. So your work experience does not need to be in an urban setting at all, but we do want to hear from you why you want to study city. So your work experience can do anything you want. But now we can ask as many questions as you want. You don't have to worry about asking. Do individuals who have taken gap years for personal reasons? No, not at all. It doesn't matter. If you would like to explain to us on your form why you took a gap year, please do. You don't have to at all. What we do want really is to understand why you want to come to us. And also, as long as the gap years don't make you ineligible for the program. So as long as you're still under 30 when you apply, it's all good. Anything else? No worries, Pranav. Happy to answer. If folks have more questions, please feel free to either put it in the chat or the Q&A. I often find that folks find the sample of work a little bit confusing. And just to give you examples and illustrations of what we've had photo essays, we've had we've had pieces of music sent in to us, we've had theses of various kinds. So some have been sort of master's and PhD thesis, some of them have been their design portfolios. What we don't really want is something that's not contextualized. So don't just send us one photograph without explaining to us what that is, or don't send us a certificate of participation in something, because that really doesn't tell us very much about the work that you've done. If your institution doesn't provide marks for the undergraduate degree and provides qualitative assessment, give the best bet. So, often like an A will, or an A minus or whatever, will map to between a 90 and a 95 on a percentage scale. So just give the best bet that you have, and then just explain that it's on the basis of a qualitative assessment. You should be able to put in, you don't have to put in a percentage. Actually, there is a space on the form to put your grade in. So you can just say it was like an A minus or B or whatever it was, or whatever the equivalent is in the case. How are scholarships awarded? So we, when you are offered admission, we send you a scholarship form. You have to fill the form in, and it asks for a set of questions. Yes, you do. You will need to submit a set of documents and things, but that comes much later. We ask for those only if you're awarded aid. We actually just ask for a small sort of essay explaining what your needs are and why you think you're eligible for financial aid. And again, that's confidential. It's not shared with anyone outside the admissions committee. And the decision to provide aid is also sort of communicated only to the people who receive it. So all of that is a confidential process. So you don't need to worry about kind of who has access to your statements or the essays that you've written. So don't worry about that at all. It only comes to the admissions committee, and we use it only to make decisions on the basis of to decide whether sort of and how much aid to offer. So, but you don't have to worry about the scholarships right now. Just apply, and towards the end of the process, when you make it in, you'll be sent all the information around funding and aid. Other questions? Anything on the essays, on the form itself? Any other questions you have about the program? We also have on the IHS website, there's also a video that walks you through the application form. So if you feel like you want to, you want to go over it again, you want another explanation of it, it's on the UFP admissions website. So go over it. And like I said, I would encourage all of you to definitely download the form and review it before you start filling it in. You can even print it out and fill it in by hand if you want, before you can enter stuff online. So on the electives, you're offered a choice of anywhere between 12 and, depending on sort of the number of electives offered, but on average about 12 to 13 electives are offered each year. They're split across 4 cycles. 4 elective cycles. In each elective cycle, you have 2 electives that are offered in parallel, 2 to 3 depending on the number of electives that there are. So 2 are offered in parallel along, and you can only pick one in one elective cycle. So you can't attend both. So across 4 elective cycles, you end up choosing a set of things that you want to curate as part of your UFP experience, and they're sort of divided around sector, around thematic, around method, around theory. So there are also buckets, and you can curate the way in which you don't have to do all sectoral or thematic or theoretical. You can do a mix and match depending on what you feel inclined towards. You can also you also do have a choice around your skill labs. So you'll have advanced skill labs that are offered during the elective term as well. And so again, it works in the same way. You choose one of the skill lab being offered in that particular cycle. And so you have a combination of an elective, a skill lab, and while you're in your elective term, you'll also be working on projects. Is there any criteria for scholarship? No. There isn't a criteria for scholarship, but like I said, you'll be sent a form and there are a set of questions on the form that you have to fill out, and we take a decision on the basis of that. What is the importance on the different parts of the application? So the first 2 to 3 parts of the application are actually just information that allows us to curate a diverse class. So your personal details, your educational qualification, the kind of work that you've done is used mainly to curate a class that comes from a very diverse set of life experiences, not just disciplinary experiences. The 2 essays in the work sample are all given equal weightage. There's none of those is more important than the other. But we do the bulk of the assessment of the application does sit on the essays and the work sample. So we don't really care too much about your undergraduate or your graduate marks or your 10th class marks. We don't really worry so much about that. What we really do want to know is why you want to come here, and whether you have an analytical bent of mind, whether you're able to identify problems, whether you have the ability to assess and deal with problems in sort of urban contexts. So and also if you have, and the sample of work helps us kind of assess whether you've done this before, what potential you have to do it going forward. So the bulk of the weightage of the application is on the essays and the sample of work. So I would encourage you to think quite sort of carefully about those as you fill out the form. Others? Nitish, I'm not sure quite I understand. How do you choose? How do we choose which student to give scholarships to? Is that what you're asking? If that is the question, then we actually, it depends on the pool of applicants that we have and the number of people who apply. How do we measure? We don't actually do a metric. It's a qualitative assessment. So we ask you to fill in a set of, like I said, there's a set of questions that we ask you to respond to. There is some, sort of financial statements, etc., that we ask people to submit. And on the basis of those two, we decide whether they're eligible for a scholarship or not. So essentially, we ask you why you need the support. It doesn't really, and there isn't a limit. So if hypothetically the entire class were to ask for a fellowship, a scholarship, and they were to demonstrate suitably that they were deserving of fellowships or scholarships, they would get it. So there isn't a cap on the number of people we give money to. But we do want to make sure that we assess them well, and that they do genuinely need the support. And we don't want financial constraints to be a barrier to your entry into the program. Other questions? I mean, if there's anything you want to ask about other parts of the UFP and not the admissions process, I'm happy to answer that as well. We also have a set of learner videos up from our alumni on the website as well. So if you, and some of them will also be conducting a webinar session as part of the information session that we're doing over the next couple of weeks. So I would encourage you to tune into those if you're interested in hearing actual experiences that our alums have had. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions. We have about 15-20 minutes left. The scope of work after completion of the program. So it's very varied. About a third of folks who apply end up going for higher studies. It could be a master's, it could be a PhD, both in India and overseas. About 30 to 40% enter professional sort of work, where they end up doing in the sense of like in the development sector. So they work with a range of and it could be the private sector, it could be community organizations, it could be the government. So about 30 to 40% end up over there. Another 20 to 30% end up with sort of policy institutions, with research institutions. So it's a very wide ranging set of people. We have people go and become journalists. We have had people who are visual artists and continue to use the urban to influence their art. We've had filmmakers, we've had lawyers, we have had people who go on to do environmental planning, people who go and work for consultant firms. We have people who've gone on to work with a range of think tanks and research institutions. So it's a very, very wide range of things that people do. What we see most often is that, again, people usually shift a little bit within their discipline. So about half the class ends up, say you come from an architecture background or an urban planning background or whatever, about half the class will stick to their background and practice it slightly differently. About a third of the class makes a complete shift. They switch completely from their discipline to doing something completely, that they didn't think that they would do at all, and that the UFP enabled them to do. And there are others who kind of stick with their discipline a little bit, but have a slight kind of shift in what they end up doing. So there's a whole range of people who do end up doing a lot of, yes, a lot of our alums are working in the urban health space actually, across the last, this will be the 7th iteration of the program. Across the last 6 years, we've got a significant number of people who've gone on to work in public health, to study public health, but not just only from a public health perspective. They've done it from a social protection perspective, they've done it from a law perspective and a legal perspective, they've done it from a medical perspective. So we've had medical doctors who've come and worked with us and gone out to do urban public health type of work. So there are others who've gone on to do tech-related work in the urban health space. So there is a very strong interest in urban health, and we have a set of electives around it as well. But the way in which they've, like our alums have interacted with urban health questions has been very varied. We have about 15 minutes left if anyone has questions. Anything else on the form, on the admissions process? Like I said, please do apply as soon as you can, honestly. Do we stand a chance to work on town planning? Yes, absolutely. One of our alums is with the Nagpur Smart City Corporation. We've had a bunch of people go out and work with governments at the city, state, and national level. We've had people go and work with Ernst & Young and PwC as on the consulting side of things. We've had people go and work with the IAS Academy in Mussoorie to help curate urban planning course material. So there is definitely a very, very wide range of of options that you have. And I mean, as part of, definitely as part of our internships and what you choose to do after, but also as part of your projects, also as part of your practica, you will have ways of interacting with urban planning and urban planning processes in a lot of different ways. Does the UP look for more diversity in terms of occupations? We look for disciplinary diversity. It doesn't really matter what work you've done, but we do look for diversity in terms of, the kinds of, disciplinary diversity you've had and the kind of life experiences that you have. So we look for regional diversity, we look for diversity of the kinds of things that you've experienced, even if you haven't actually worked. So professional experience is not required. But we do encourage a very diverse class. And like I said, only about a third of the class comes from a particular discipline. And in terms of, occupation, as people leave and go out, it's entirely your choice. So we don't really curate the kind of internships and we don't push you to choose one over the other. It's entirely your choice what you choose to do once you leave. Anything else? One last round of questions before we close. Reading material, you can, I would suggest, Pranav, you'll have enough reading to do once you get here. So I don't know necessarily that that you want to be reading beforehand. But also don't worry. I mean, you don't really need to polish up on urban planning before you get here. You learn everything you need to. All the reading you need to do will be given to you here. So I would say focus right now on getting a solid application in. Do any of the alums work at IHS in completion? So people have done internships in the past. We don't hire our own alums immediately. We've actually just for the first time this year hired back one of our alums, but that's after about 3 years of them having gone and worked elsewhere and then come back. So we don't give placements to IHS immediately after completion. People have worked with us on internships though. If there is a project that's open and if there is an interest on the part of the students, but otherwise not a full-time job until you've gone, worked elsewhere and come back. So you have to be away for about 2 to 3 years before we will take you back. And that's not for any other reason. We just feel like it's useful for you to go, you'll have spent a year with us when you leave. And it's useful to go elsewhere, get exposure, learn from other places and people, and then come back to us because that also enriches us as an organization and us as faculty. Others? Anything else? If there are no other questions, we'll give it another minute or two, but if there are no other questions, we can close. I would encourage you again to download the form, to look at the website. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to us on the phone, over email. Don't worry if you feel like you don't understand parts of the application form. Feel free to write to us. We're happy to walk you through it. We're happy to help you with it. But please do remember that you can only create a single account, send in one application per person, and that you have to have a unique identifier in terms of your email ID. So those are things that we won't be able to kind of make too many fixes with on the back end. But other than that, we're happy to help with any kind of issues you might have. So just if you do have issues, if you do have problems with submitting the application, please write to us and reach out to us sooner rather than later. And that's partly why I'm encouraging everyone to apply as soon as possible, or at least start the process as soon as possible, because towards the application deadline, we do end up getting a lot of requests and a lot of questions and people asking for support. And we're often not able to get to everyone in time because it all just comes as a flood right at the end. So please start early and apply as soon as possible. How do we assess students with mixed disciplinary backgrounds? It depends on your essays, really. So, explain to us, if you would like, why and what sort of your mixed disciplinary, your background does for you, why you chose to do it, and talk to us a little bit about, at the end of the day, why you want to come and work in the urban. And that's really, so we don't assess people with mixed disciplinary backgrounds any different from people with single disciplinary backgrounds. And as far as your the disciplinary category, it'll be kind of the last degree that you've done. So whatever it is that your last degree has been in, and if it's a liberal arts degree, it's fine, it doesn't really matter. Mention the kind of your specializations when you submit the form. But it doesn't matter if you have a mixed disciplinary background, it's not going to hurt you in any way.
Thank you for your time, Neha. Well, to all our participants, the next webinar is scheduled on Wednesday, 6th of April. Our speaker, Sudeshna Mitra, will take you through the campus life and internships at the Urban Fellows Program. And as Neha has already mentioned, the application process for the year 2022-23 has begun, and the last date is 11th of April. I request you all to please submit your applications before the deadline. Thank you all again. See you next week.